If you're cutting dados, this is the tool you need. And it doesn't get any better than this. There we go. Always wanted to cut a half lap, if for no other reason than just to say I cut a half lap. But to do that, I used one of my latest cool tools that I have in my shop, and I thought I'd talk about that today. So what I'm talking about is the Matchfit Dado Stop, and this one is the Matchfit Dado Stop Pro. But what it allows you to do is to cut perfect dados with little muss or fuss with just about any blade you have. So the Matchfit Dado Stop Pro has a setup gauge to it, and it comes with a clamp, and it does have a nice set of instructions on how to set that up. So let me show you just how easy this is to use. So let's just show you some of the features of this stop before we move on. Leg number 1 is fixed. Leg number 2 is the one that we will adjust to set the kerf of the blade. And leg number 3 is what we're going to use to set the width of the dado. So the first thing I want to do is calibrate leg number 1 to this blade. I'm going to attach the jig to the fence with the clamp. Then I need to move the fence over because I want to adjust that so it just ticks that blade. And there we go. All right, so I've calibrated that. Now the next thing to do is to set my cursor to 3 inches. The next thing I want to do is I want to calibrate the setup gauge to the blade I'm using. To do that, I'm going to remove the dado stop, and then I'm going to cut a piece of scrap material, and I'm going to set it to about 4 inches. It's not particular, but I'm going to set it up to about 4 inches, and I'm going to make a cut. I want to adjust the height of the blade so that it's just above the bottom of that notch. Next thing I want to do is put up my setup gauge, butt it up against that piece I cut earlier. Then I'm going to clamp it in place, and I'm ready to make my cut. To use the dado stop using the setup gauge, I'm going to place it in there like that. So we have leg 1 to leg 1, leg 2 to leg 2. So now I'm going to adjust for the kerf. So I'll touch that leg 2 to leg 2. Then we'll rotate the gauge 90 degrees so that it's flush back here and flush there. And we're going to set the width of the dado, put a piece in there, and I will then push leg 3 up against it. And I've set the width of the dado. To cut the dado, I've raised the blade to 3/8 of an inch. I've moved my dado stop back to the rear of the fence so that my workpiece will clear it as it goes through the blade. And what I want to do, I want my dado to be 2 inches from the bottom here. So what I'm going to do is set my fence to 5 inches. And remember, that's 2 inches for the dado, and then 3 inches for the dado stop, and that's where I come up with 5 inches. To cut this, I'm going to bring the piece up against leg number 1 and make my first cut. I will then butt it up against leg number 3, make my second cut, and then I'll whittle away the area between to create my dado. So let's see what we have here. There we go, a nice tight fit. It's always good to do test cuts. I do them all the time just to make sure. Because in my own shop, what I found that this works perfect most of the time, but I have found a time or two where the cut was just a little bit tight. And if that's the case, then I've had to reposition the leg number 3 slightly. So to do that, what I would do is put it back in position. I'll put my piece back in there, and I'm going to just shim that just slightly with a piece of paper. And then I'll make another cut on this piece just to cut that one side, and that usually loosens up the fit just perfect. But this is a perfect piece. The dado stop can also act as a stop block if you're doing cutoffs. And to do that, we're going to use leg number 1. The nice thing here is that there's 3 inches, so that allows you plenty of space there to help reduce the chance of kickback. So let me show you how that's going to work. So there you go, works like a charm. So another thing you can do, if you want to set this dado stop up to another blade and you don't have another setup gauge, that's easy enough to do. Let me show you how that works. If you followed the store at all, you know I like the Freud box joint set. So I'm going to calibrate this to that set. So I'm going to do just like I did before. I got to calibrate leg 1 to the blade. Once that's done, pull the stop back, and I need to do a test cut. I need to clamp a test piece onto my miter fence. Now I'll draw it back to the stop. I want to keep it clamped, and I'm going to set leg number 2 up against that piece I just cut. Now I've just adjusted for the curve of the blade. Just like I did before, put my piece in there, set leg number 3, and I'm ready to cut. But if that piece weren't wide enough, take the clamp off, remove your piece, and then take a small square, flush to the back side of the stop, flush to leg 2, and then I'll put a test piece in there and I'll adjust that leg like that. So just that easy. So let's make a cut and see how that works. There you go, nice clean half lap, even in MDF. I really like how the Matchfit Dado Stop works, especially in conjunction with my Freud box joint set, because I use that so much in my own shop. But let me just emphasize that it's a jig. So make sure you do test cuts before you do your final cuts. You'll be much happier. Another thing that you probably heard that I failed to mention was the fact that there are magnets on the bottoms of both of those. And that's actually just to help you aid in setup. For more information on the Dado Stop or anything else at the store, I encourage you to visit us at thewoodsmanstore.com.